Why was the ape bad at science? He kept monkeying around with evolution. Why did the dinosaur go to therapy? It had an identity crisis after evolving. The timeless hymn, How Great Thou Art, was born from a sudden, awe-inspiring thunderstorm in Sweden and was later expanded by a British missionary couple and popularized by the Billy Graham Crusades. Its journey from a personal poem to a global classic spans over 70 years. While walking home from church on the southeast coast of Sweden, 26-year-old preacher Carl Boberg was caught in a violent, flashing thunderstorm. Once the storm passed, he heard the calm singing of birds and distant church bells ringing. Deeply moved by nature's power and beauty, he wrote a poem called O Stor Gud, or O Great God. It was eventually set to a traditional Swedish folk melody. British missionaries Stuart K. Hine and his wife were serving in Ukraine and heard a Russian translation of Boberg's song. Hine translated the 3 verses into English. Later, in 1948, the grief and separation expressed by post-World War II refugees in Europe inspired him to write the 4th and final verse, focusing on the return of Christ. In 1954, British publisher Andrew Gray gave Hine's leaflet of the song to famed gospel singer George Beverly Shea. Shea performed it during the 1957 Billy Graham Crusade at Madison Square Garden in New York, where it was an instant sensation and quickly became an international staple. Since its debut in the U.S., the hymn has been recorded by numerous legends, including Elvis Presley and Carrie Underwood, making it one of the most recognizable worship songs in history. Please sing along with us.
How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. When Christ shall come with shout of acclamation and take me home, what joy shall fill my heart? Then I shall bow in humble adoration and there proclaim, my God, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art.
For those who don't want to believe in God, the theory of evolution seems to be a way to answer the question, where did life come from? An early boost to the theory of spontaneous development of life was demonstrated in 1952 by Stanley Miller and Harold Urey. They put what they supposed was in Earth's primordial atmosphere in a closed container and subjected it to electrical sparks to simulate lightning. After a while, they tested the contents of the container and found out they had accidentally created amino acids, some of the basic building blocks of much of life as we know it. That much of the theory of how life started is real science. Everything beyond that is pure speculation. Here's the whole theory as I remember it being taught in high school biology class. Those amino acids and other molecules would randomly combine and recombine in the environment. All that would have to happen would be to accidentally create one self-replicating molecule. As that molecule replicated itself, random mutations would occur, and the law of survival of the fittest would ensure successively higher level organisms would be produced, as described in Darwin's theory of evolution. Consider the virus. It is little more than DNA with skin on it. That theory has some serious problems in it. It seems obvious they want us to believe that self-replicating molecule is DNA. The problem is that DNA does not and cannot replicate itself. DNA is replicated through the carefully coordinated and controlled action of 3 other molecules within a fully functioning cell. When it's time for the cell to divide, those 3 molecules must perform their functions in order and only once on each strand of DNA in the cell. DNA doesn't act. It is only acted upon by other molecules in a fully developed and properly functioning cell. For the last maybe 70 years, some scientists have struggled to find a way to make DNA into a self-replicating molecule. To date, they have failed. Some have even moved on to try to do that with RNA. I don't believe they will be successful there either. I do believe a self-replicating molecule never has or ever will exist. Another problem is the implication that the virus could be the first higher-level organism above the imagined self-replicating molecule. Viruses cannot reproduce themselves until they infect a healthy, fully functioning cell. The virus then hijacks the cell's reproductive molecules and forces them to reproduce the virus. Fully functioning cells must exist in abundance before viruses can even survive. The next problem is in Darwin's theory. He included in his book a statement that as we find more fossils, we will either find fossils demonstrating one species transforming into another, or his theory is incorrect. Darwin wrote his book around 1837 to 1839. We are fast approaching 200 years since that book, and we still have not found the fossils he predicted we would find. I'm not one to place too much significance on what has not been found. You can see how that plays out in the last video on the Bible and archaeology. What I do place a lot of stock in is what paleontologists call the Cambrian explosion. If you dig far enough down in ancient sediments, you will reach what they call the pre-Cambrian layer. In that layer, there are no fossils at all. The next layer up is what is called the Cambrian layer. Here is a quote from a Wikipedia article on the Cambrian explosion. The Cambrian explosion, also known as Cambrian radiation or Cambrian diversification, is an interval of time beginning approximately 538.8 million years ago in the Cambrian period of the early Paleozoic, when a sudden radiation of complex life occurred and practically all major animal phyla started appearing in the fossil record. It lasted for about 13 to 25 million years and resulted in the divergence of most modern metazoan phyla. The event was accompanied by major diversification in other groups of organisms as well. That sounds to me like it says in Genesis, "Let there be," and there was. My conclusion is that the fossil record shows more evidence of creation than it does of evolution. By the way, I don't put a lot of stock in the dating methods they use to arrive at the dates implied in the article we just read. If the Bible is true in all respects, as I believe it is, then the Earth has only had life on it for about 6,000 years. That means the Cambrian layer is only about 6,000 years old. By the way, I don't remember where I got the dates I have been using for creation and the flood, but you should know that not everyone's calculations come out the same. James Ussher, a 17th century archbishop, thought creation occurred in 4004 BC. His book was published in 1650 AD. James Lightfoot, working primarily from Ussher's work, came up with 3929 BC. In the last video, when talking about the flood, I probably should have put it at 4,500 years ago rather than 4,500 BC. That would put the flood closer to 2,500 BC. If you're finding some of these videos helpful, share the link with your friends.